What is going on, everybody? King Recon here. It's been a while since we've done a car video. I used to do these all the time back at the beginning of this channel and most certainly on the old channel. But this week, since my only day that I would be able to record the Afterthoughts was going to be, or is going to be, a jury duty day. So I won't be able to. I'm going to be on my Ace Attorney game. Being one of the members in the crowd, being like, you know, if you ever play Ace Attorney, you have the random dudes out there in the jury who just, and then you have the judge who's like, order! There will be order in the court. And so, today instead, I'm going to be doing the Afterthoughts from my car because I cannot go another week without recording an Afterthoughts, not after the most recent installments, man. We have been cooking. Ichiro Oda has been on a completely different level, yo. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to record this throughout the day here in my multiple breaks that I have at work. And then I'm going to try to put those together later on and see if I can eliminate any of the background noise and stuff like that. But regardless, listen, man. The most recent chapter, as a matter of fact, the two most recent chapters have given us instant messenger Sama eliminating a Gorosei, and then that very same Gorosei position being filled by yours truly, Coach Figureland Recon. And I cannot wait to see how he's going to be cooking, because if I know anything about the Figurelands, especially with the most recent chapter, they get the job done no matter what. They stand on business no matter what. And so what we have is the only moon star in a set of elder planets who is undoubtedly going to be cooking at the highest level. My thoughts in regards to what could potentially happen from here on out in regards to Garling and the Gorosei situation is, this is what we were kind of worried about in regards to the Gorosei, which is why we were all curious, like, are we going to see a traitor within the Gorosei? Are we going to see an individual who's going to spice things up and not have all of them be completely united under Instant Messenger Sama? Because it seems like that would add a lot more intrigue, especially in a series like One Piece where betrayals happen quite often, especially within villainous organizations. So in the biggest one of them all, I was looking forward to seeing if something like that would happen. And so now we don't have to worry about that, because not only do we get some a humanizing moment with St. J. Garcia's Saturn in that chapter, but we also got to see now with the addition of Garling, that is going to be the wrench in Instant Messenger Sama's plans / the Gorosei's plans, because now they won't be able to execute everything the way they want to. They're going to have that one individual in the room who's always going to be going against their quote-unquote wishes and orders. At least that's the way that I would book the situation, the way I would write it if I were doing so. And because of that, I've got my notebook here just in case we have to bust out a Coach Recon segment here, but I don't think there'll be any need for that, because I am Coach Figureland Recon and we can do this in the middle of the air. And so with that being said, I'm fully expecting them to run some sort of, specifically when I'm referring to them, I'm referring to the Gorosei coached by Imu, General Manager Oda, who's going to be looking at the entire situation through the lens of, okay, how can I spice things up as much as possible now that I've introduced all of their abilities, now that I've introduced their personalities, now that I've shown off their names? How can we spice things up to keep things interesting within the Gorosei? And Figureland Garling is without a doubt going to be that wrench that every single time they try to do something, he's either going to go as the major contradiction to that, and or he's going to go do things on his own. He's going to be like the Luffy in Law's plans. You know how Law always has a plan, everything goes right, and then Luffy's the one who messes everything up? That is going to be Garling. And so a character filling that role within the Gorosei is going to be so much fun to see. And so that's what I'm expecting from the Garling and Instant Messenger Sama situation. On the topic of Instant Messenger Sama, what an amazing showcase we've gotten for this character. The last time we saw Iwa before this, we saw him groveling by the Conqueror's Hockey being like, "Joy Boy." And we were all wondering, is he doing this out of fear or is he quaking from anger? And it most certainly feels like he was quaking from anger after this week's chapter. I wonder how he's able to recall Garcia's Saturn back in that way. Like, did he just absorb him back in, meaning that they might all be extensions of Instant Messenger Sama? Or is there something else at play here? I'm excited to see where all that's going to go. A lot of mystery and a lot of intrigue came of that entire situation, which is extremely exciting. So very, very looking forward to the Instant Messenger Sama plotline as we continue to progress with that. Especially with that chapter ending with the Revolutionary Army and the shortages, because I thought the food shortage situation was going to be revolving majorly around the Revolutionary Army, but instead in this week's chapter we see that Lafitte is actually there on behalf of the Blackbeard pirates to scout that out and see how everything's going there. And so we could potentially see a situation where, due to this food shortage system, that will be the link between the Blackbeard pirates, the Revolutionary Army, and the Gorosei, and seeing how those end up mixing in, considering how the Holy Knights are the individuals that the Revolutionary Army want to go after. If they have another scuffle with the Blackbeard pirates like they did earlier in the series, that could lead to a major triple threat match between the Blackbeard pirates, the Revolutionary Army, and the Holy Knights, which would be super, super fun. I want to see some sort of interaction between one of the Holy Knights. We don't even have to know who they are. It could be like a Jaya Blackbeard pirate situation where, you know, we saw Doc Q eating the apple and we saw Burgess, but we didn't know they were members of Blackbeard's crew. I would like to see that with the Holy Knights. Maybe like we see a little couple panels with Lafitte as he's going through that port, and then he runs into one of the Holy Knights there. That causes an extra fun situation. Then maybe one of the members of the Revolutionary Army shows up. That allows Lafitte to escape. Revs going with the Gorosei, or I'm sorry, with the Holy Knights. They have their scuffle. Blackbeard and them take advantage of the situation as the opportunists they are. That would be how I would love to look at a situation like that, considering all the major players at hand, because they all have some sort of thing to take away from this. And so a lot of exciting stuff there. Once again, the Instant Messenger Sama stuff is the most exciting, but considering the real villainy that we saw at play. But man, Figureland Recon in the flesh as a member of the Gorosei, like, man, you can't get any better. Can't get any better than that. So that chapter obviously wrapped up with that, and extremely exciting stuff on that end, considering what is in store. When I come back, we're going to talk about this week's chapter more than into the Lafitte stuff, because there's a lot in this week's chapter. Legoland with Nami, we've got Shanks and Bartolomeo, and in the midst of all of this, we've got Blackbeard, Pudding, and the rest of the squad with a Garp in the ace pose right before Marineford, man. Something's cooking, bro, and it's a little bit of barbecue. All right, so I only had enough time to write down one comment, but this comment, I liked it a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and read this one. Now, I wrote it down, so if it comes out that the comment itself doesn't sound as fluid, it's not thanks to this individual. It is because I tried to copyright it as fast as possible inside my notebook so I could read it here. And so we have Lautaro Ferrer 2858. Now remember, this is coming after chapter 1024, which is originally when I put up the post. Or not 10, 1124, which is when I originally brought up this post. So this is talking about Kizaru and Sakazuki. So Lautaro Ferrer 2858 says, "To be honest, the Kizaru scene was one of my favorite moments of the series. 2 OG admirals being so fleshed out with such few words. Kizaru being so broken inside yet willing to do the deed, though helping the enemies on occasions, unlike Fujitora or Kuzan, and now suffering alone its consequences. And of course, that leading to the powerful scene of the funny slow man calling Sakazuki a little bee with tears in his eyes. I feel like Sakazuki's response is underrated too, although it's been like 8 hours since the chapter came out, lol, since with a couple of words, he shows how much he cares for his comrade, being for the first time in the series humbled and recognizing that he has made a friend suffer with his words and possibly actions, and apologizing to him, admitting he was in the wrong. I swear, man, Oda with just a couple of boxes can create such fine details, nuances. As a Kizaru fan, I'm beyond happy. Great comment, and I remember we discussed this pretty in depth after the chapter ended. But what Oda's done with the admirals in this arc has been nothing short of sensational. I mean, nothing short of sensational. Every single last one that was either spotlighted and or highlighted, might as well be highlighted within this arc, every single one had a masterful, at least 1, 2, 3 or more moments of beautiful characterization. From Kuzan, of course, former Admiral, Kizaru, and of course Sakazuki, whether it be whenever Kuma went up there, even before the arc started, or now, after the arc has ended. It's quite impressive what Oda's managed to do with the admirals, and I'm so happy. Because obviously with those three, being the OG 3 admirals, as you said in your comment, we have a lot more personal attachment with these characters, especially in regards to the way they would feel and react towards certain things. And so once the Vegapunk message started going out, I was really curious as to how individuals like Sakazuki would take it. And so to see in the middle of all this mayhem that I'm sure he must be feeling, he also has this moment with Kizaru where he feels like he lets him down. And he's humbled and he has to apologize for his actions. It's a really, really great moment. And once again, it's coming in the mayhem of directly after Vegapunk's message. We see everyone's immediate responses to it, and sometimes you don't have to respond to the event itself. Just how much or how their emotions are jumbled up or how their mind is jumbled up is enough to let you know how much that information impacted them. And so just based off of this exchange, we can tell that these individuals were in fact changed and or affected by what Vegapunk said in his message. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that continues to come into fruition as the series continues. But now that we have finished discussing that chapter, it's time to talk about this week's chapter. And that's what I can't stop thinking about, man. So many different elements. I want to start off by talking about Bonnie and Kuma. Oda once again, and I was talking about this the other day. Laz and I recorded a collaboration in regards to trails, and I was talking about how a thing that I love in my stories is when we have long-term payoff and short-term payoff that take place at the exact same time. And so long-term payoff obviously is what we're seeing in regards to Bartholomew Kuma's situation, how long we've known this character, how long this character's been built up, and to see that long-term payoff within Egghead was really, really beautiful. And for him to have that final moment calling back to the flashback was some incredible stuff. But in the short term, to once again call back to that flashback and have us this emotionally attached to a character like Jewelry Bonnie, who before this obviously was a really cool character, but we didn't know anything about her besides the personality quirks and her abilities and stuff of that nature. But to come out of that Kuma flashback and out of Egghead truly being attached to the relationship between Kuma and Bonnie, for us to have that moment, that really emotional moment where the promise is fulfilled and they were actually able to see a horizon together again after everything that she'd gone through, after everything that both of them had gone through, it was a powerful, powerful moment. One Piece arcs tend to end on really emotional beats, really emotional highs. You think back to like the end of Whole Cake, end of Alabasta, the end of Enies Lobby, right? Like there's a few of them that come to mind that like either the goodbye or a certain moment happens that tears you apart emotionally. And so this was one of those where right at the very end of the arc, we got that moment of satisfaction that we don't know how much longer Kuma's gonna be there. Even if even there's only like a little bit, like a 0.1% of Kuma still left in there. The fact that Smile was in the panel and he was there with Bonnie was enough for us, enough for me, an individual who's become very attached to these two characters, for that to be the final moment of their arc. And it was so beautiful. So beautiful. Just a couple of panels, and it did so much for both of these characters. And just what a wonderful journey we've gone on with these two characters. From the moment that Egghead started, seeing Bonnie, the interaction there, and then seeing what was happening with Kuma outside after Wano, and to know that we were highly anticipating that stuff before the arc started, but none of us had any idea just how hard it was actually going to hit. And so it's incredible to me how he managed to go above and beyond expectations in regards to that flashback, and especially in regards to how I feel about both of those characters. But coming off of that, obviously we had the party section, super exciting stuff, but the most exciting stuff about that is, of course, what happens at the end of the chapter. Let's talk about the Shanks and Bartolomeo stuff and Yasopp, because obviously, as a massive fan of the Red Pirates, this was a monumental thing to cut back to. This was the last thing I was expecting to see in this week's chapter. I had a feeling that we would cut back to Bartolomeo at some point. I just didn't know it would be this soon, dude. This soon? We cut back to Bartolomeo and have the moment where Shanks and the crew are surrounding him and he has to make a decision. Your captain or your life? And he chooses his captain in an incredibly beautiful moment. Very reminiscent to that of Jinbei back in Whole Cake Island, where he says, where he tells Big Mom that what is a Yonko to the future Pirate King, right? Like, what are you? What are you, a former member of the Rocks Pirates? What are you, an individual who's about to go into an alliance with Kaido? What are you, one of the highest bounties, highest alive bounties, bounties known to a person that is alive? Who are you in comparison to the future king of the pirates? It's pretty much what Bartolomeo told Shanks. And although he was cowering there in fear and you felt it, he still stood his ground up until the very end. But I especially loved this moment for the rest of the crew, because you got to see the rest of the crew and how they handle themselves in these situations. And obviously, Shanks is an individual who is very calculating, especially in regards to stuff like this, always wanting to go with the lesson. And I'm going to assume he learned that from Roger, right? As an individual, probably did that to him and did that to the other individuals in his crew. And so Shanks carrying on that is really, really nice. But what got me the most with the Yasopp situation is the fact that we know Shanks has super future sight. This is an individual that can watch a movie before somebody does an attack. And so he knew the attack was coming, but he allowed it to happen. That means that he had full trust in Yasopp to carry out that situation, and that he himself would then take responsibility. It's like it takes an entirely different meaning to the title of the chapter, where it's not just it's not just Bartolomeo taking responsibility for the actions that caused this whole thing in the first place, but it's also Shanks now having to take responsibilities of the consequences of what this is about to lead to, which is, I believe, Luffy having this dilemma, which is, love this kind of stuff in my stories. He's gonna have to choose at the end of this arc, or at the end of Laugh Tale, whatever it is, or before Laugh Tale, whatever it is, between a Blackbeard who not only almost took Kobe, but has now taken Garp, similar to how Ace was taken by the Marines. And in the midst of that, he's also going to have to deal with the fact that Shanks took out the entire crew of one of the members in his Grand Fleet. An individual that served him not just food, a place of rest. Like, Bartolomeo's a close one. We know how Luffy acts in regards to anyone who gives him food, any friend. How is he going to react when he sees that Shanks did it? That's going to be a really powerful moment. I'm looking forward to seeing the reaction to that from Luffy, because that by itself is going to tell us the tone that we should expect coming into that fight, or that clash with Luffy and Shanks. Because at this point, they're building towards it, man. They're building towards it, and I can see it happening very, very soon after this arc, obviously, unless Shanks shows up with Elbaf, which would be crazy. But I'm fully expecting it now, especially after this chapter. And I'm curious as to like the captain's dilemma he's going to be in. Will he have to choose between going to Blackbeard and Shanks in that situation? What's going to happen there? Like the long-term payoff for that is what I'm really fascinated about. But I definitely do think when we see Luffy's reaction to the news, that will set the tone to what we should expect from Luffy-Shanks clash. If it will be a serious clash or a fun clash. Because if Luffy goes out and he sees the newspaper and he says Bartolomeo's a pirate and he's his own individual, and so he's taking responsibility for his own actions, as Shanks was just doing, he was just defending his territory, so I completely understand. He has a reaction like that, then we can expect a fun meeting between the two. However, if Luffy goes angry mode, straw hat over the face Luffy, and then he's presented with the scenario of the fact that the individual who did this is the person that he looks up to the most, then we could have a really fun dynamic there between Luffy and Shanks. I'm looking forward to either situation, but I think the second one just presents so many fun scenarios, because you could still have the fun interactions after that battle's over, obviously. But leading into it, there would be so much that we could speculate on that I really want that to be the case. And so that was a really fascinating part of the chapter, obviously one that caught me completely off guard. But ever since the chapter dropped, and I've been thinking about it, the long-term consequences of both this and what's happening right now with Blackbeard is really fascinating. Because now that Catherine Devon has come back, St. J. Garcia's Saturn is obviously gone, but that hasn't been announced to the world yet. And so I'm curious as to if they're going to announce that to the rest of the world, if Saturn has been taken out, has been replaced by Garling. Because if they do that, then what is Blackbeard going to do, right? Because now they're placed in a situation where the entire world, after Vegapunk's message, some individuals are going to be very wishy-washy in regards to the WG and the information they put out there from now on. And so if the newspaper goes out and says one of the members of the Gorosei got killed, let's just say that they blame it on Luffy or whatever, or on someone who wasn't Emu. And then Blackbeard potentially goes out there and says, no, we've captured Saturn hostage. What would the public and the common populace think? Would they go out and say, you know what, is Blackbeard spitting the truth? Because I see St. J. Garcia Saturn, he's clearly there. Or is the WG spitting the truth here? Do I stick with them and believe that Monkey D. Luffy did it? Then there's some really interesting stuff. So I think that's the route we're going to be heading in, especially knowing the opportunist that Blackbeard is. That could be some really exciting stuff. With Pudding there, I'm most certainly expecting the Big Mom Pirates / Katakuri and a few of his brothers and sisters pulling up to rescue Pudding. This is something I've been talking about for a long time, but after Whole Cake Island and seeing what Luffy and the squad did with just a group of 5, it's like a war zone squad that they took in there, invaded Yonko territory and came out there successfully. You know, not worried about catching the W, just successfully infiltrating, getting their crewmate back and coming back home. Katakuri seeing that, I'm wondering if he would attempt something similar in Blackbeard's case as a beautiful little parallel of what he's learned, right? And obviously, I think that they would ultimately fail unless Big Mom herself would pull up, because just Katakuri and like Oven and Smoothie, for example, if all the Blackbeard pirates are there, they're not doing anything unless they're really sneaky about it. So I think it would have to be a situation where potentially we could lead to some Blackbeard Big Mom conflict here very soon. And I know we fully expect Big Mom to have some sort of presence here in Elbaf, so I'm curious as to how Oda's going to play that out. Do we have the Big Mom Pirates, like half the Big Mom Pirates, show up at Elbaf? Or do we have a full-blown frontal assault saying, screw the Elbaf stuff, we're going for Blackbeard, right? And then maybe that will add another thing to where Big Mom, rather than going down at the hands of Law and Kid, goes down at the hands of Blackbeard, allowing the rest of her kids to escape. The rest of her kids then become a part of Luffy's Grand Fleet. Like, we could add an entire thing that just continues on and on and on, right? The repercussions of their actions. Once again, all of the individuals in this chapter are going to have to take responsibility for their actions. And so, that could be a really fun little scenario as well. Very much looking forward to seeing what Oda ends up doing with that. Do we have the Big Mom Pirates at Elbaf, or do we have the full frontal assault and Hachinosu in an insanely crazy. Yo, Blackbeard, if this goes the way I think it's going, or in the realm of possibility, Blackbeard in every single arc of the final saga is going to be putting up numbers, man. He put up numbers in pre-Egghead, then he put up numbers in Egghead, and now he put up numbers in post-Egghead. So it's like, man, what's about to happen in Elbaf? Whether it be Elbaf, whatever is coming. You know what I'm saying? So exciting stuff there. Both from Blackbeard and Shanks, obviously before their inevitable interaction with each other, but that's definitely one of the things that I'm most interested by right now. The what Oda's going to do with that Blackbeard plotline in regards to Pudding obviously being there, and we know they're going to try to get them back for what they did to Whole Cake. I mean, it's not just the Pudding situation; they went in there and ransacked the place, and so they've got to come back and and run the ones again. So that's what I believe. That's, I believe, a scenario that could take place here, which would ultimately be extremely fun. Had to double check that I still had enough time. I got too excited there. I forgot I was at work. So before I go back, though, I do want to talk about the end of the chapter, because, of course, that is the thing that I've been thinking about the most. Y'all know how much I love Nami. And specifically, with what is happening right now, we don't know if this is going to be like what was brought up in the comments section, in the live chat, after we finished a reaction, but a potential Legoland that was created, and or a little Lego playhouse created by Loki, and that when we find out what is outside of that box, it's actually Elbaf, because we know how Oda has been consistent with the scaling so far with the giants and the Straw Hats. And so if Nami's inside of this massive mansion that she believes is there, and that we believe is this like really big place, and in actuality it's just a little small dollhouse that belongs to Loki and or somebody from Elbaf, it would then lead into that sense of scale of just how huge these things are, the giants are. And so I'm so down for that. I would love that. I'm very curious as to whether this is going to be our transition into Elbaf itself, or if we're going to have a Jaya before Elbaf, you know, the Water 7 before Enies Lobby, the pre-arc, right? Like the arc that comes before the main arc. And so I'm going to go down one of those two routes. Either we're about to have a very short, thematically rich arc, similar to a Jaya, where the rest of the world's stuff continues. We continue to get around the world reactions, bounties, all of that, just like in Jaya, before they head into Skypiea, which is Elbaf. Or we start Elbaf, Oda says, screw all that, we're going to get into it right off the bat. And Elbaf starts off with us inside of this little house, the mystery of trying to get out this little house, and then of course we get into the conflict, already starting off with extremely interesting intrigue, starting off on the right foot with a super fun splitting of the crew that has the original members of the crew on one side of things, and the members who joined post Vivi on the other side, which was brought up by the community as well, that this could be a good way of bringing Vivi back to us, which would be so much fun, especially if she's on the side of the other members of the Straw Hat crew who were not obviously there when she was there. So that would be a ton of fun, and something that I can most certainly see, especially with what is currently going down around the world. And so a Vivi sighting very soon would be super fun. And it would add so much to the interactions in this arc, and allowing them to warm up to obviously a member of the crew whom none of them have had the opportunity to meet besides Robin when she was Miss All Sunday. So that would be a lot of fun, and I really hope that is the route that we're going, especially the way that the crews have been separated. Besides that, the interactions on our side, the side that we follow at the end of the chapter with Nami and the rest of the East Blue Squad along with Chopper, is what I'm very excited about. Because these are, of course, individuals that Oda just had the opportunity to see within the live action, have their interactions. And so I'm sure he's been wanting to write interactions with these characters again in the manga so bad. And so what we're going to have is an Oda who's been pent up with so many different interactions and dynamics and potential gags and moments with these characters after watching the live action, after being inspired by Inaki Godoy and the rest of the live action cast members, to then create a story, a little small either side story or beginning of Elbaf with these characters, so that Oda can just go all in on the cast of characters that we love so much. I'm so down for that. I'm so down for that because I know he has to be feeling that. I know that he has been feeling so much inspiration based on how much he loves the whole live action process. And so with the cast members and with everything in that same line of thought, he's got to be like on cloud 9 with all the inspiration. So I really can't wait to see what he has cooking here because we know it's been cooking in the kitchen since the live action started. So extremely exciting stuff there. I can't wait to see the interactions on both sides of the Straw Hats split up. And I'm really curious as to if this is going to be a very small mini arc, transitional arc leading us into Elbaf that's still thematically rich, or if this is going to be straight up mystery to start off the arc, because I love when arcs start off like this, man. It reminds me of, I always say the beginning of Dressrosa was such an amazing time for me because you start off that arc and it's immediate intrigue. I mean, same thing with Water 7, same thing with Zoe. There are certain arcs that they start off with, there's other arcs that start off with like a lot of momentum and progression, right? Like your Marinefords, your Wanos, these arcs that start off with extreme momentum that you can't stop watching. But there's other arcs that start off mystery rich, like your Dressrosas, your Zoes, your Eggheads, Thriller Barks. These arcs that start off and you're like, what in the flying flatter is going on here, right? And so those types of arcs, when they start off, are always super fun. And if Elbaf is starting off in that way before we head into an adventure piece, forget it. We are in for some peak. But I gotta get back. We will continue for the last break that we'll have later on, and then we'll see where things go from there. But man, I'm so glad I finally got the opportunity to talk about this, bro. There's so much peak, man. So much peak on the horizon. Back to finish the Afterthoughts. Unfortunately, I was not able to record it in the final break, and so obviously I couldn't do it whenever I initially got home, so I had to wait until nighttime at around the normal recording time. I'm only gonna have time for like 2 or 3 more of the comments, but like I said, gotta do it, man. This chapter was so dope. These past 2 chapters have been so dope that I want to get your guys' thoughts on the incoming future of the series, and I feel like some of these comments still resonate, even though there are a couple of chapters, even though these comments are from a couple chapters ago. I didn't get an opportunity to receive any comments for 1126, but we already talked about that greatness. So we have a few here. Starting us off, let's go ahead and go with Oda's editor here, Praetoris, who says, "Sorry to be a buzzkill, but I don't think we're going straight to Elbaf. Oda's teaser for the year was, I thought of a route around that island, but I don't think I can stop Luffy from going. I don't think that applies to Elbaf. There's no way Oda could skip it given its significance. So which nearby island could we be stopping off at first?" And I chose this because of how fascinating the current theorizing is around where we actually are right now in this Legoland. The most likely, in my opinion, is Hachinosu. If there's anything Luffy will put an adventure off for, it's saving family. Blackbeard holding Garp hostage is a direct inversion of Marineford. Instead of a young pirate who doesn't want to be saved, we have an old Marine who doesn't. It's the perfect chance for some amazing storytelling resolving Luffy and Garp's troubled relationship, as well as some deep pirate lore. Also, Yonko saving the hero of the Marines could turn public opinion in favor of Luffy, something Vivi is being set up to do with Morgans. Not to mention that we just came from failing to save an old man. Can they do it right the second time? Of course, it's possible that Teach and Garp wouldn't even be there. Teach will be on the move as soon as he hears from Caribou, which is exactly what we got in chapter 1126. The other big possibility is Sphinx. Ace's grave could be another detour worth putting off Elbaf for. Green Bull could also still be in the area transporting Weevil, and Stussy was going to look for Vegapunk to prove his heritage. She may give up given the news, though. Anything else would be something unexpected compelling Luffy to go. Some minor possibilities including Empty Bluffs, Wano Act 4. Wano Act 4 is crazy. The Moon, Please Oda, or a new island we haven't heard of. Which, that might be the case. My only prediction is that we are not going to Elbaf yet. Either you'll be laughing at me in a few weeks, or I really am Oda's editor. Amen. Based on where we're headed, there's a 50-50 chance. Either you are Oda's editor, or we're at Elbaf, but we could be having like a Jaya-esque situation before then. So listen, Praetors, you were cooking. You were cooking, especially there on the Teach and Garp stuff there, cutting over to Hachinosu. like I was saying earlier, whenever I recorded the other section, I'm very excited to see where Oda takes the Tishin Garb stuff, because there's so many different avenues he can take it. Obviously, in regards to being a bargaining chip, and or for bringing somebody like Luffy towards him and taking advantage of that opportunity. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that is on the horizon, thanks to what's currently happening on Hachinosu. And like you said, it most certainly is a direct inversion of Marineford, even down to the parallels to how both of the characters looked heading into it. Kanemaki comes in and says, Akainu Aoki. Thank you, Praetorius, by the way. Kanemaki says, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru all got some really good introspective scenes this arc, it seems. They most certainly did. They most certainly did. Just fantastic stuff for every last one of them. It's honestly kind of nuts how we continue to get these incredible scenes for characters we've known for so many years. But in particular for those three, it's just like, man, how does he do it? How does my boy do it? So I'm going to read Silver Shots. Silver Shots 5208 comes in and says, "Sub Coach, just want to give my thoughts about the chapter and the overall Egghead arc." So this once again go back to chapter 1124. Chapter thoughts: the part of Kizaru crying over Vegapunk is one of the highlights of the chapter for me. Seeing this emotional conflict that was shown throughout the arc finally pay off from a person that we've seen but mostly unemotional was just amazing. While Sakazuki calling Kizaru his brother give us more insight into his humanity, where he is more human with people that are close to him, like when he sparred Kuzan after the battle, which for me is also amazing since we got more characterization from all of the OG3 admirals, and it looks like that's a common consensus within the community. And I think what's so cool about it is now with chapter 1125 context, we see how that a similar thing was utilized to humanize Saturn in his own way before, of course, what we saw in that chapter with his downfall. So it's interesting, and how humanizing some of these characters and continuing to give them these little bits and moments truly grounds them and gives them those layers, but of course still keeping them mysterious and antagonistic, but adding those layers of complexity which are so interesting. I feel bad for the GOAT Sentomaru, considering that he had to fight his mentor Kizaru and his father figure Vegapunk for sure. Died. Even then, he still saved Bonnie after his competition with Kizaru. Can't go back to the Marines since he'll be labeled as a traitor for helping the Strides escape Egghead. So he basically has nowhere else to go. Do you think he's going to join some other faction, or do you think something else will happen to him? You know, I've been thinking about the Sentomaru thing, because you're absolutely right. That feels like the one individual who, even outside of the message, is going to be so severely impacted by this that they're going to be an X factor heading into the final part of the story here. In regards to doing another faction, I'm not sure, but I could see Sentomaru looking over Bonnie in Vegapunk's / Kuma's stead. Maybe not as like a direct guardian or parental figure, but as someone who is just making sure that she's alright, which means wherever she goes, Sentomaru may go as well. Whether it be Revolutionary Army, a member of the Stride Grand Fleet, whatever the case may be, I could see Sentomaru following suit. But at the same time, I could also see Sentomaru staying with the Marines, but going over to like the sword side, or establishing the new era with Kobe, heading into the final act of the series. That's most certainly something that can happen as well. I'm excited that Lilith is now with the Stride crew on their journey to Elbaf, which could mean the Sunny gets some upgrades alongside some of the crew's arsenal, as well as with the stuff Vegapunk brought with him on the ship. Subject of Lilith, I think the reason behind her knowing everything because she still might be connected to Punk Records, which could have filled the details for when she was knocked out. Yes. As usual, we have the Strides doing their end of arc celebration with the Giants, which is amazing considering that we're now going to Elbaf. I think the guy that appeared at the end of the chapter could be either Scopper Gaban or the guy that was drinking with Crocus during the Fishman Island cover story, maybe the same person. And obviously we talked about that at length. And I like those ideas. I like the Shiki idea. I like the dude who's drinking with Crocus, Scopper Gaban, Man by Flames, a brand new character. I like all those. Yeah, just adds another layer of intrigue into what already feels like is, especially with 1126 context, is starting off to be a very, very interesting arc. Morgan's and Vivi arguing over the recent events happening. It's also another part of the chapter I like, since we see Vivi still cares for Straw Hat's well-being and not wanting any bad publicity sticking to them. With this in mind, I wonder how the world is going to react to the Egghead incident as a whole, and the Straws in particular. I've been thinking about this a lot. Silvershot. We still don't have an answer as of 1126. And, like, especially if the paper, like I said, says that either they were the ones who took Saturn down, or they were the ones who assassinated Vegapunk, or whatever the case may be, when the paper drops, or Big News Morgans puts out whatever it is going to put out after all of this, whether it's hyping him up or, like I said, something diabolical, I'm very interested in to see the reactions of the rest of the world, especially coming off of that message, which of course a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, he's just spouting a bunch of nonsense. But there's some people who are going to be 50-50. It's like, man, have I really been lied to my entire life with this? And they're going to be looking at the other side like, hold on, man. And of course, like I said earlier on, that's going to leave for some Blackbeard opportunities there with the Saturn and Katarina Bond situation. But so then Silvershot says, arc thoughts. When this arc started, most people thought it was going to be a 15-20 chapter arc at minimum. I thought I honestly thought Egghead, when we first started, was going to be Zoe length. So I was going 20 chapters. 20 chapters. I remember, especially with the way that first volume went, everything was happening so quick. I was like, dude, we're going to be out of this arc in no time. It was a massive arc. We actually got with 66 chapters, some of the best action, lore, interactions, characterization we've seen in the post-time skip, but even the entire series. From the Egghead events itself, like meeting Vegapunk and the satellites for the first time, Luffy vs. Lucci, Trader plotline, Luffy Kizaru, Kuma's flashback, with the Buccaneer Lord, God Valley Incident, Revolutionary Origins, Kuma's relationship with Guinea, Bonnie and Vegapunk, Kuma putting faith into Luffy and the Strats that they'll save the world. Still one of the best scenes ever. The entirety of chapter 1102, Kuma punching Saturn. The Giants come in Egghead, 5 Elders come in Egghead, and seeing a bit of their power for the first time. They'll face Spread as one of the best in the series. Vegapunk's message, the world sinking. Joy Boy being the first pirate, crazy. Destruction of Lucia being made public. Ancient weapon lore, Roger's true name being revealed to the public. Gear 5 Bonnie, like come on, man. First look at Joy Boy, E-Myth unleashing Joy Boy's hockey. Outside events like Law vs. Blackbeard, Shanks vs. Kid, Achinosu Raid, Galaxy Impact, Garp vs. Kuzan, Garp and Kuzan flashback with the Battleship Bags. Honesty Impact, Reverie Incident, Revolutionary vs. Admirals, Revolutionary Different War on the WG, Lily Reveal, Vivi, Cobra, Lily being part of the D-Clan, Sabo vs. Emo and the 5 Elders, like, bro! Wapol seeing Emo and the 5 Elders, all this in just the first arc of the final saga. Imagine the stuff we'll get in Elbaf and future arc. That's what I've been saying, dude. The amount of stuff we'll see revealed and shown will be on an enormous scale. This arc, in my opinion, is top 3 arcs in the entire series, and the fact that some of the stuff here being set up for the future reveal is absolutely insane. It is. I know this seems weird and random to put in now, but I actually want to recommend you a YouTube channel called Dawn and Dusk. I have heard of them. I have heard of this individual. He's a Japanese translator for manga, and he does a really good job at analyzing some of the nuances that are present in the original Japanese One Piece manga that aren't really there in the English version, making theories based on those nuances and patterns from the original manga. Also, he was one of the people alongside Morge to correctly guess that the One Piece world was going to sink months before it was revealed in the manga. Yo, future sight. He also has a second channel called Luna PNR, so I recommend checking him out. Yo, Silvershot, first and foremost, thank you for giving your thoughts on Egghead, because it just put into perspective just how awesome this arc is. And thank you for shouting out Dawn and Dusk. Most certainly, anybody out there who's interested in that, definitely go check that channel out, especially for the nuances. I'm always fascinated with stuff like that, especially like you said, because of the nuances in the Japanese language. Some of that stuff can't be accurately translated. And so or at least it would be very difficult to translate it. And so definitely it sounds like a very interesting YouTube channel over that side of things. But thank you, Silvershot. Great stuff there. And let's go ahead and do Quag2s here as the last comment that we're going to be reading in today's Afterthoughts. It says, this is more of a general post-Egghead thoughts comment than just 1124. Looking back, I've realized that the discussion Luffy, Sanji, Nami, and Chopper had in Chapter 903 about the use of science within the crew may have been more important than we thought. I recommend rereading this scene. It's just 2 pages. So let's go ahead and do that. Chapter 903, that was volume 90, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Volume 90, yes. Let's see. Chapter 903, The Fifth Emperor. Let me see. The use of science within the crew. I think it's these first 2 pages, right? Don't throw it away. Don't you dare throw it away. If you do, I'm going to dive to the bottom. Let's see to find it. It was in my pocket, so you don't want it. They give it to me instead. Must have been Niji's work. He was the only one who actually made contact with us. It's his way of yanking my chain. They're going to blast you to pieces, if that's the fastest you can go. If I'm going to get stronger, I won't do it by relying on this thing and the power of science. Don't be too hasty, Sanji. Science is the power of mankind itself. If you use that to transform into your raid suit, you might be able to shoot laser beams. Frank is the only guy we need on the crew with gimmicks like that. What? Did I hear someone insulting science? My sorcery climate baton is a fusion of atmospheric science and Usopp's craftsmanship. Yeah! Here we have my dog Zeus, the Pokemon. Pooh, I love being inside that baton. Zeus, you actually tagged along? I can't believe he chose food over loyalty. But let me be clear, I was her servant first. But I get to live in a baton that never leaves contact with Nami's body. What? Sanji, you're fighting a cloud of evaporated water. So it was that the comment here about the science is the power of mankind itself. So we go back, and Sanji tries to discard his raid suit. Luffy Chopper say, don't be hasty, science is the power of mankind itself. And Nami tells Sanji that he shouldn't insult science as a climate attack uses atmospheric science that she spent 2 years researching on Weatheria. Now, it may just be a coincidence, but every point brought up in this small conversation happens to perfectly line up with Vegabunk's final baitings in chapter 1121. I believe in the intelligence of mankind. I believe in science. Not only does this line sound very similar to Chopper's quote above, but the panels that go along with it show Weatheria and the cloud technology that the Straw Hats may or may not have on their ship right now. You're absolutely right. And now that we know that the thing used to, all the way back in the day, to unleash Joy Boys hockey in the modern time, use something from Weatheria as well, which is very interesting. Now that you bring that up, going forward in the final saga, I believe the Straw Hats may need to fully embrace the power of science if they want to get the One Piece. They now have what no other crew has, and that's a Vegapunk on their side. It's his will for them to find it after all. If Lilith wants to use the cloud tech without the help of Egghead's advanced atmospherical system, her cooperation with Nami will be vital, won't it? Absolutely. She's the easiest access to Weatheria's knowledge. When the time comes and the world is flooded, these artificial island clouds could be essential to securing the safety of Sunny's Delaware from users. But even with such a huge disadvantage like Lilith's knowledge, Blackbeard will still be a huge threat to the Straw Hats in regards to technology, as you'll be learning the whereabouts of Pluton soon enough. No matter what, it seems like Blackbeard is never a step behind. I really do fear him when it comes to the final stages of One Piece. No other character fills me with such a mysterious feeling of dread. And it goes to show that the entire final saga up until this point. Thank you, by the way, Quack2, for the comment. I absolutely agree with you. But it really goes to show how much he's sticking to that mystery. Because every time Blackbeard has done something in this arc, we then see Emu do something. And it's almost like Oda putting up the question to all of us, being like, yeah, always keep in mind these two. They are the biggest X factors that we need to keep an eye on. Because both of them are going to end up being like major obstacles in front of the Straw Hats. But in Blackbeard's case, because he's a pirate and the way that he's been built up, and the opportunist that he is, it's like, man, you really can't count him out on anything. Always feels like he's a step ahead. So it's like, it's super exciting the way that the characters continue to be built up. But with Blackbeard in particular, especially throughout the course of the final saga, he's been really moving, man. I mean, to the point to where he has individuals like Lafitte checking on the food shortage situation. I mean, he just feels like he has a lock in the entire world right now. It's insane. And then with this whole Kyrie Navon Garcia Saturn thing, it's like, yo, what is really about to happen right now? It's insane. It's insane. So good, man. But yo, this week's chapter, fantastic. Last week's chapter, fantastic. And the week before that chapter was some great stuff. So it's like right now we're in a situation where we're transitioning into the next arc. We have no idea what's incoming, but it feels like everything is just firing on all cylinders, continuing to go in the way every post arc does. But man, dude, because it's the final saga, it has like that little bit of umph to it. You know what I mean? So really can't wait to see what's on the horizon. But I thank you guys so much for being patient with me. I look forward to seeing you guys next time, and hopefully the audio issues won't be too bad from whenever I was recording in the car. But things will be all right. Hopefully. But I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much. Really can't wait for this week's chapter, man. Let's go.